In 1995, the French government opened a grave in Sioux Cemetery. They needed protective equipment to do it. Lead-lined containers, a full radiological assessment before anyone got within 10 feet of the coffin. The woman buried there had been dead for 61 years, and her body was still too radioactive to handle without protection. They transferred what they found to the Panthéon in Paris. First woman ever interred there on her own merit. Marble tomb, her name carved in stone. Tourists visit it every day. Nobody asks what is actually inside that box. Because the coffin that was buried in Sceaux in 1934 has not been in France since 1934. Something took it. Something that the radiation did not stop. Something that has no grave of its own, no record, no death. Something that had been watching Marie Curie from the street outside her laboratory for 6 years, waiting for her to die so it could take what she had refused to give while she was alive. This is what happened, and why. "3,000 years of blood. That is how long it had been enough. Not comfortable, not pleasant, but enough to stay alive, enough to stay hidden, enough to move through Rome, Constantinople, London, New York, and leave no trace anyone could follow. Then it stopped being enough. Not overnight. Gradually. The way something wears down before it stops completely. Each year the hunger came back faster. Each year it took more to push it back. By the late 1800s, he was feeding more than he had in a century and feeling it less. He had no explanation. He had no one to ask. He had never needed to ask before. Paris, November, 1898. He was following a woman who had left her laboratory after midnight, alone, on foot, dark coat, boots on the cobblestones, a bag of papers under her arm. He had done this 10,000 times in 10,000 cities. He knew exactly how it ended. He was 3 steps behind her when the hunger stopped, not slowed, not eased, stopped completely, like a fire that goes out in an instant. He stood on the pavement and felt something he had not felt in decades, possibly longer. Nothing. The clean, total absence of want. She kept walking. She had not heard him. She had no idea. He let her go. He stood on that street for a long time afterward. In 3,000 years, nothing had done that. Not blood, not rest, not anything. A woman walking home from her laboratory at midnight had ended his hunger in 3 seconds without touching him. He followed her to her building, watched the light go on, stood across the street until it went off again. The hunger stayed gone the entire time. He came back the next night, and the night after. It stayed gone every time. Her name was Marie Curie. He read everything she published, every paper filed with the Academy of Sciences, every report, every result. She had been working for years in a shed with no ventilation and no protection, stirring tons of radioactive ore with an iron rod, breathing the dust, carrying samples in her coat pockets, handling materials directly with her bare hands because no one yet understood what that exposure was doing to a human body. Her body had absorbed it, years of it. She was not just studying radioactivity, she was producing it. That was what he had felt on that November street, not the woman. What the woman had become after years inside that shed. Her body now emitted something no instrument in 1898 could fully measure. Something between energy and biology that had no name yet in science. It had no name in 3,000 years of his existence either, but he could feel it from 50 feet away. And it was the only thing he had found in decades that silenced the hunger completely. He sent a laboratory assistant to take a small quantity of the material she was calling radium. The young man did not remember doing it clearly. He could not have explained why he had done it. The missing sample was noted in the laboratory records and never explained. He held the radium in his possession for a week. It was weak, a fraction of what he felt near her. The element alone, removed from the body that had absorbed it, produced almost nothing. A shadow of what he needed. He understood then. It was not the radium, it was her. What years of exposure had done to her body. The way she now produced and emitted something that existed at the edge of what science could measure and what he had spent 3,000 years surviving on. The element was just the ingredient. She was the thing itself. By 1910, she had won a Nobel Prize in physics. She was about to win a second in chemistry, the only person in history to win in 2 different sciences. She had buried her husband, Pierre, killed by a cart on a Paris street in 1906. And she had worked through the grief the way she worked through everything. By going deeper. She was also dying, not quickly. Her hands were scarred, her fingers permanently damaged. She was anemic, exhausted. Her blood counts were wrong in ways that doctors in 1910 had no framework for. She knew. She had known for some time. She went into the laboratory every morning anyway. He approached her near the laboratory on a cold evening in March 1911. She stopped walking and turned to look at him the way a scientist looks at data she has already been tracking, as if she had noticed the anomaly and was simply now confirming the source. He said, "You are dying." She said, "I know." He said, "I can stop it." She looked at him for a long moment. She said, "What do you want?" He told her. What her body had become after years of exposure. What it produced. What it did to his hunger. What turning her would mean her body frozen exactly as it was, permanently, the radioactivity locked in place forever. What she would be to him. Not a victim, not prey. Something more permanent than either. A source. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You want to keep me exactly as I am, forever, producing what you need. That is what you are offering me in exchange for my life." He said, "Yes." She looked at him the way a scientist looks at a result that is accurate but completely unacceptable. She said, "No." She turned and walked back toward her laboratory. He did not follow. She died on the 4th of July, 1934. A plastic anemia. Her bone marrow had stopped producing blood cells. Decades of radiation had taken her apart slowly, completely, one cell at a time. She had known what was killing her. She had chosen it anyway. Her coffin was lined with an inch of lead. Her body was too radioactive to bury any other way. She was interred in Sceaux, beside Pierre, in a grave surrounded by warning signs. Nobody went near it. It was too dangerous. He went on a night in autumn, 6 months after the burial. The warning signs were there. He read them. He walked past them. The lead meant nothing to him. The earth was no obstacle. He did not need long, and he had no interest in ceremony. He took the coffin. He left everything exactly as he had found it. The flowers, the marker, the fence, the signs warning about radiation levels too dangerous for the living. He kept it with him, in his possession. She had said no while she was alive. She did not get to say it twice. The hunger stopped completely for the first time in decades. Not for a night. Not for a week. It stopped. In 1995, the French government transferred her remains to the Panthéon. The first woman interred there on her own merit. They took every precaution. Lead-lined containers, protective equipment, a full radiological survey before anyone touched the original grave. They found what was there to be found. They transferred it to Paris with full state ceremony. The president spoke. The tomb was sealed. Today, her name is carved in marble in the Panthéon. Tourists photograph it every day. Nobody asks what is inside. The coffin buried in Sceaux in 1934, the one containing the body of the most radioactive human being who ever lived, has not been in France since the autumn of that year. It is somewhere no government would think to look, with something that has no grave, no record, no death, No hunger for the first time in centuries. She refused him everything while she was alive. He took it anyway. And the only place she truly rests, the only place the real Marie Curie has been for 90 years, is with the thing she looked in the eye on a cold Paris street and told no. Some things, once taken, do not come back. They simply wait.